There's good news. Just ran into Mark D'Antonio with Louis downstairs, and so that there's no anticipation or no explanation, we're deferring the jump ball and taking the wind on the Carriers. So you won't have to. D'Antonio said defer, take the wind, and that's what we're going to do. But you know, it's been a long time coming for this, and it's been something that I guess was more Mark's dream than mine, but it was the dream sometimes turned into a nightmare lately when I think about what they have and what they're doing, and yet the experience is the experience and the opportunity is the opportunity. There's not many times that anybody gets a chance to play #1 team in the country, and we get to do it on a setting that could be as different as any there's ever been, and I think we're looking forward to that. But you get past all that, you realize what you're doing it for, our troops, the vets, veterans, and everybody else, and that's all great, but now there's a game to be played too, and the game is important to us, it's important to them. I think we're looking forward to seeing how we match up. It's hard to get a feel. You look around the country right now, exhibition games have been strange in a lot of respects. More than a couple teams got beat in them. It's just hard to evaluate where everybody is. You look at Kentucky last night winning by, I don't know, 100 or more points. I don't know what they ended up winning by. So you don't really know who you're playing, what you're playing. And I guess if there's good news to our scheduling, I know who we're playing, I know how good they are, I know what we're playing, and we're going to have to evaluate ourselves accordingly. We've had a great week of practice. I think since the exhibition games, I've seen a little more lift in our guys. We're still, the experience bothers me a little bit because we just struggle with things like even out-of-bounds plays or zoning out-of-bounds plays. You know, Brandon and Brandon, our two wing guys, we just haven't had enough time to work on it. But other than that, I like what we've done and where we're at. I think a big key to the game is going to be our transition defense. If we learned anything from the Final Four a couple years ago, and we looked at last year's last 4 games and this year's exhibition games, and 80-some of their points are scored in the 80-some% of their points are scored in the first 13 seconds of the shot clock. So that tells you that their break is lethal, and they're pushing it up, and they're not really taking a lot of time to run things. And that was against pretty good competition last year and an exhibition game this year. As far as we're concerned, right now, we're still debating which center we're going to start. We're probably leaning towards Payne, but not for any specific reason. I think Nix has had, a couple of pretty good exhibition games. He's had a great week of practice, so that could change, but I think it's just going to be those 6 guys going to be rotating right now. I think Brandon Dawson is starting to get more and more comfortable, and Draymond has been as solid as you need to be. If there's been a negative, we haven't shot the ball well, but in looking at stats from a lot of teams around the country, I'm not sure many people have, and I don't know what the reason is for that. But I think that is our big concern, Appling and Wood, and of course Bird, as he plays more and more, have to become a better shooting team, and I have all the confidence in the world that Keith will. I don't think any of his struggles that he's had a little bit shooting the ball are from playing the point and looking at where his shots came from. I feel very comfortable that he's just missed some shots more than the position change or anything like that. So other than that, I can't express how excited we are to go there. We're leaving tomorrow, as maybe some of you are. I think it's going to be a memory-making experience in a lot of ways. I just hope there's more good memories than bad. I don't know what's going to happen when we get there. I don't know about the wind. I don't know about rain. I don't know about anything. Don't really care, to be honest with you. I just want to play the game, and hopefully it's as good a event as it can be because of our military, because of who and the reason the game is being played is more for them. The game itself is more for us, but the reason is more for them, and I hope it's a great event accordingly. I know Mark Hollis has done an exorbitant amount of work to get this thing finalized, and I don't think that job is going to end until the tip-off. But it's pretty exciting. A lot of people are pretty excited about being there. So if you have questions, I'll take them.
Tom, first, last night on the show, we had troops who are in Afghanistan on right now talking about how they're gathering parties together to watch a Carrier Classic. Have you talked with the players about how much bigger this is, maybe outside than necessarily internally?
You know, I tried a little bit last couple days to explain to them and talk about, you know, what I went through over there and how practices should be picked up, because there's, you know, we're giving up nothing compared to those people. But I don't think you can realize that it's going to be streamlined to all those places, bases all over the world. You know, Super Bowls are done that way now, but this is something that it'll be done that way, and it's kind of for them in a indirect way, so, or direct way. So you know, I just don't know until you're there or you talk to somebody who's appreciative of that. When you talk to troops around, or former troops or veterans or anybody else in our state, people have brought up how thankful they are that we're doing something. I don't know if players get to hear that or not, but I think the players have a good, listening to them talk, a good understanding that this game is about a lot of things, and none bigger than our soldiers, our troops, our veterans.
Secondly, win or lose the first 2 games of the season isn't going to have a bearing on a Big Ten title or an NCAA tournament berth. Is how your team reacts to those first 2 games, however, almost more important than what happens in them?
You know, it's a toughest question I've had to deal with. We talked about it with our staff today. You know, you don't want to prepare for the worst. You don't want to prepare for the best. It's hard to do. You know, if you start about, well, what if we lose the first 2 games? Because we're looking at, we got 3 games the next week, and that's going to be difficult. We play Tuesday, and then we play Friday, Sunday, and we're trying to figure out how to take a day off with the brilliance of the NCAA rules. You know, we have a couple weeks in a row where we play a lot of games, and you do that because you're trying to get games in before Thanksgiving or when the students are gone. I mean, there's so many reasons, and you know, we've come up with this rule that, okay, if you don't take a day off one week, you got to take 2 off the next week, and you know, it's a tough situation. So we talked about all those things, and if you lost the first 2, would you take off Wednesday and then play already on Friday? And do you need to practice to get everybody's head back in it? If you won a game, if you won 2 games, a lot of scenarios that we really don't have control of right now, and I'm not sure you can project how it'll be handled. But I think the most important part for us right now is to understand, yeah, we're young, yeah, we're inexperienced, but yeah, we're competing to win games. I mean, we're not going there to play well. I think it's important that each game we get better and we learn from what we do right or what we do wrong. I think that's what the early season is going to be for, and biting off a little more than you can chew with this opening game. I looked at the Big Ten schedule today, and I looked at, you know, most teams in the league are playing, and I say, you know, that would be nice for this team. But the other side of that coin is we're going to know and we're going to learn a little bit where we're at. And it'll be easier to coach guys to say, if you didn't win the game and you did a poor job, this is where you got to get to, this is where you got to be. I think there's going to be benefits both ways, but how we handle them, how we accept them, win or lose, I think is going to be critical. It's kind of new territory for us because we haven't played these kind of games this early, first, second game very often.
Tom, do you remember the details on how this idea originated, when it was, and exactly what your reaction was when you first heard about it?
Well, the details of when Mark and I started talking about it was the week I came back from Kuwait the second time. The first time I think it was, which I'm not sure the date, 2004, 5. And, you know, we talked about it then. I thought the next year we had something in Jacksonville, and I thought it was going to be us playing Navy and North Carolina playing Air Force, I think is where it started out. It was 2 military teams. And then that didn't come about, and that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to play somebody. And we tried to play Navy, and it just didn't work out, so we played the Citadel. And I just wanted to take my team somewhere. that has some, grasp of the military. And when we went there, it was interesting just going by the barracks over lunchtime, or the dorms, I guess, but what they went through, and I thought that was a good experience for our guys. And then Hollis just kept on, sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes he'd notify me once in a while, and I'm still working on, I'm going to the Pentagon, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And like I said, I think the guy deserves a lot of credit. I mean, there were other people that were involved, but I think most people would agree it was Mark that did most of the legwork. It was Mark that kept pursuing it. North Carolina got on board early, but it was getting the job done that was so hard. And and I hope nobody looks at this as a gimmick, because it's not a gimmick to us. It's a big deal because it's a big game. It's a big deal because who we're representing. It's an odd place to play, but as I said, life's about memories. College should be about memories. This is going to be one of the bigger memories.
You said that you don't care about the weather and everything, but do you do anything to prepare for outside? Can you practice outside? Will you get on that court ahead of time?
We can. I think we get 2 practices on the court. One's a 45-minute one with the media, I guess, kind of like the Final Four from what I understand, and the other one's a hour shoot around too. And so what we'll probably do is just shoot up there, I mean, when I say I don't care about it, I just, people around here think I control a lot of things, but there's one guy that controls that, and it's sure as hell not me. And we were going to practice outside. We were going to get some shots up at if the weather, in fact, today we were looking at as a day to do it because it was supposed to be 60 and then it was going to be rainy. So I don't know if that would make any big deal difference or not. I think it was more for fun and excitement and to tell them it's here. But getting 2 out there will help a little bit. But I don't look at that as any different for either team. Everybody talked about when you played in those big arenas, Ford Field, or that it was going to be so much different. I don't think the shooting in those have been any different. I think hoop's a hoop. Most guys are used to playing in a lot of places, and some of the best basketball is played in playgrounds in New York. So I'm sure we can handle it on a deck with a nice court in San Diego.
Tom, is it humbling to know that you're playing, or that the veterans, the soldiers are, in a life and death business, and yet they're the same age as your guys to a certain extent, and sports, and their team's colors, and they follow it, passionately, and it's just a game, but it means so much to them compared to what they're doing.
Well, that's what was so great about me going over there. That's the one advantage I have over most of the people involved in this thing, as far as from the collegiate standpoint, is we went over there to coach these guys, and you talk about guys that played hard and complained little. And Jay Billis was in the other day, and he was mad. Reggie Mint and I had practices outside because our teams weren't very good the second time I went there, and it was 130 and on a blacktop court, and the sun was shining and the sand was blowing, and you think one guy even remotely complained. They were so excited to be there, it was scary. And that's what's so neat about this. And then when when I came back the first time, I think I arrived in the States at around 10 at night, and I was getting into Detroit around 12:30, and I told my staff to have my players at my office at 2. And I had a meeting then with my players and brought the food bags that we had on one of our excursions, and the different things I went through. And to think that we compare athletics to life and death is ridiculous. But at the same time, we're trying to do here, what we're trying to do is very important to us, and what they're doing there is very important. And my favorite part of the whole trip that I went on to Kuwait was having breakfast with some troops that have come back from Baghdad at 6:30 in the morning, and listening to them, talk about the NBA Finals. And we went and worked out with guys at 5:30 in the morning, and we watched the NBA. We were on treadmills, and the NBA Finals was going on because of the time difference, and it was great. It was one time they could relax a little bit, and some went from watching that game to throwing on 100 pounds of gear, jumping in a truck and going 200 miles north to Baghdad. And when you, after breakfast or that night, or when you think about things like that, yeah, it's humbling. It's humbling. It's ridiculous that we don't appreciate those people more than we do, because they really are underappreciated. I mean, you look at what happens when they come back, and if this brings a little light, and it's kind of ironic that Irvin's deal yesterday of the 20 years brought so much light to AIDS. If in a small way this little game can bring light to the people that probably deserve something that they aren't getting, and including from me. I mean, just until you are a veteran or are in the armed services, I don't think you appreciate what they go through. And my two-week stints over there of just being around them made me appreciate it more than I can ever explain in words. And whatever I said to my players, whatever I said to you guys, it was just a small piece of what I saw and what they went through. And I wasn't in combat. You know, when we did a drill, it was funny because we did a deal where we were in a Humvee and they flipped us over. It was a simulation, and we had to get out of it in a certain amount of time, and it was like 20 seconds. And the doors were 275 pounds, and you're upside down, and you got gear on, and you know, we had 2 soldiers in the front, and Tubby Smith and I in the back, and I think I beat Tubby by 4 seconds, and we were at about 1:50. In other words, we would have been dead 3 times, you know. And so as we did it time and time and time again, those troops in the front got out in 13 seconds, 15 seconds. And as we got down to 30, after a lot of tries, then they gave us this information. They said, now picture turning over, being in the water. That's where most of our troops get killed, in those kind of flip overs, in the water and people shooting at you. And you just, how do you comprehend that? How do you even, you know, I had enough trouble getting out of the damn vehicle, you know, and then you put that in there, and it just kind of gives you perspective. And so I'm glad that I'm participating in this event, because I had been over there and had a small, and I use the word small, understanding of what our troops are doing.
Tom, you guys, you mentioned how a lot of your guys aren't shooting well right now. Do they ever concentrate more on defense if the shooting is not going well, or do you see that from the guys concentrating a little bit more on defense?
We haven't done that well yet either. Don't kid yourself. I mean, we're not, you know, we're just in the process here. I still think, as I commend or reprimand or whatever I do, you know, the NCAA rules have to change a little. There's just not enough time to get everything in. I think every coach should agree with that. Our women are 2 weeks ahead of us, and so this isn't a surprise to me. I mean, I do think we'll shoot the ball better. Our defense has improved. We've tried to spend equal time on both because of the number of new guys, and so neither one of them has come up to where I wanted. And yet both exhibition games, we had moments where we did some things very well. When we subbed with different lineups, you know, we'd go from a 20-4 run on a positive to a 18-6 run on a negative. And part of that is just, you know, guys playing with each other and doing the different things that you got to do on the court. And it's going to take some time, but I think we'll shoot the ball better. I'm not sure we'll do it on an outdoor court, but as I said at the press conference after our game, if we're still a little left, like we've been, or a little right, the wind's blowing the right way, maybe that'll aid us. It'll blow it right in instead of blowing it out.
Tom, you've prepared multiple, over here. You prepared multiple teams to play against North Carolina, but with such a young team in a limited time, do you have to concentrate more on installing your defense, you know, versus offense, or do you keep that balanced?
Well, the good thing about Carolina, you know, and they've beaten us 5 times in a row, and a couple of them good games, and a couple of them blowouts, and a couple of them, you know, in big games in the NCAA tournament. So we have not fared as well, but at the same time, they've had pretty good teams just about all those times. And when you look at a team that such a high percentage of their offense is their fast break, that's what I try to sell our guys on. It doesn't matter about getting over ball screens or this or that. It's an effort-related stat. We got to get our butts back, and we got to do it and pick up people. And you know, they're very long, very, very big, pretty athletic, but very big. And probably the best runner of their team is their 7-footer, and he's He's very good at getting down the court. Marshall, as we all know, last year they were struggling. He came into the starting lineup. It changed their whole team. He's a very good passer. He's kind of a consummate point guard. He gets the ball to people with little frills to it. He's a very solid player. And they've improved, I think, defensively over the last couple of years, where they're now a pretty good defensive team too. So we're just trying to work on our transition defense. We're trying to work on making sure we don't turn the ball over, which we've done a decent job in our exhibition games, but it's going to be a little more length here to deal with than we've had to deal with in those exhibition games.
Tom, with Brandon, obviously, it's a tough matchup on Harrison Barnes. Do you also need him to put pressure on Barnes on the other end? And how much of an emphasis on Brandon's playing this game is there?
Well, Brandon's there's a perfect example of what I mean about growing up, you know. I mean, he's a McDonald's All-American, and, you know, we'll see what that means. But we also have to remember where Barnes was this time last year. You know, it was January, and everybody, you know, acted like he was the biggest flop in college basketball because he, you know, wasn't doing what they thought he'd do. And then all of a sudden he takes off, gets a little bit more confidence in what he's doing, a little more experience, and he has a phenomenal last 2 months of the season. So I'm not trying to put too much pressure on Brandon except to have him watch film of Barnes, because I think, you know, right now he's a poor man's Barnes, but he's built similar. He's gone through similar things. Barnes is probably a little better shooter. He's improved his ball handling. Brandon's probably a little better rebounder and even stronger than Barnes was as a freshman. I'm not trying to compare him, but I'm just trying to say that's what Brandon has to aspire to be. And so what better way than to play against a guy and learn, you know, what you need work on. And I'm anxious to see myself how that matchup fares a little bit, but it's not going to be BJ against Barnes. I'm not that stupid. You know, he'll be getting a lot of attention from us. If there's double or triple teaming, he'll be getting some of that. And yet it's hard to get off of some of those other guys because there's pretty good consistency on that team.